Welcome to Creative Corner with Denise. It's great to be with you, and I'll be with you until 8 o'clock tonight. And of course, it's the first Thursday of the month, so the first hour of the show is Book Chat with Jackie. So welcome, Jackie.
Hi, Denise.
It's
How
great,
are you?
Great to have you in the studio again. And today on Book Chat, we're going to be doing 2 phone interviews, one with author Sarah Foster, and a little bit later in the show, we'll be having the youth coordinator from the Point Cook Library also speaking to us.
That's right, yeah.
So we've got some great things coming up on this show, on this edition of Book Chat.
That's right.
Absolutely. Well, let's get started with some music, and then we'll be back to talk to our first guest. You're listening to Creative Corner with Denise on 88.9 Win FM. Listening to Creative Corner with Denise, and of course tonight is Book Chat, and we're going to welcome our first guest.
Yes, today we've got Sarah Foster joining us. Sarah is an author from Western Australia, and she's written a couple of books. Her newest one, Beneath the Shadows, has a bit of a gothic flavour, and I was fortunate enough to read it over the Christmas break, yes. And Sarah's actually coming to Melbourne in March, so I thought it would be fantastic to get to know her, because she'll be coming to the Heath Road Library in Werribee Plaza.
Oh, so very local for our local people.
So it'll be a great opportunity to get to know her a little bit before she visits us.
Absolutely.
And just wanted to say welcome to Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hello, how are you?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I've talked a little bit about your new novel called Beneath the Shadows, but I thought before we get stuck into that, you're a fairly new author to the scene, and I'm sure people would want to know a little bit about you. Are you able to tell us a little bit about your history and how long you've been in Australia and that sort of thing?
I can do, yes. Well, basically, I was born in Lancashire in the UK, and then moved when I was 8 and was brought up in Norwich as well, a little bit further down, and worked in London when I had finished my studies for a while until my husband and I decided to move to Australia. So we moved to Western Australia back in 2004, and we've been here ever since.
Okay, so is your husband Australian?
No, he's a Yorkshireman.
Oh, okay. So what attracted you to Australia?
We had been travelling back in '99, and I've also got family here. I was actually, the first time I visited Australia, I went to Hoppers Crossing, which I believe is very near you.
Very, very near us. Yes, it's like the next suburb.
Well, actually,
coming home almost when I come and visit you. But we just loved it when we came back, and we'd explored all sorts of different areas. And then when we came to WA in 2003, we just thought it was beautiful and applied to settle here.
Okay, fabulous. So when did you start writing, Sarah?
Well, I've always written in one sense. I mean, as a child, I was very keen on it, and did a lot of poems and short stories and was entering little competitions and things like that. But I think that I started taking it a bit more seriously around 2000, 2001. That was when it was beginning to occur to me that actually I wanted to try and forge a career in it eventually, and that was also when my character of Grace in Beneath the Shadows came along as well.
Okay, and what inspires your writing, and what gives you the
ideas?
The ideas, yeah.
All sorts of things, really. I mean, I'm very much a keen observer of life in general, and I love to read all sorts of different things. So, for example, Beneath the Shadows was much more just my experience of life at the time. I was going through a bit of a transitional phase, wondering what I was going to do with myself, and I think the character of Grace was really born from that, someone who's in a bit of a struggle and trying to figure out where her path is going to take her. But the first novel I wrote, Come Back to Me, that was actually inspired by a little article in the West Australian newspaper, which detailed a tragic event that just absolutely struck me at the time as a horrific thing, and I just wanted to explore the ramifications of that, the psychology behind that for the people involved.
And would you pigeonhole yourself into a particular genre?
Well, certainly at the moment I'm writing what people often call mystery suspense, or what I often call psychological suspense. I'm definitely interested in those psychological themes that are going on, and certainly interested in creating the twists and turns and the fast pace that come with suspense. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't like to do other things in the future. I certainly would like to try my hand at different styles and things, but that's what I'm doing for now.
Yeah, and what do you find the most challenging thing about writing?
Probably trying to, certainly with writing novels, probably trying to maintain control of your story all the way through. I mean, writing a novel is such a big thing to do. It can quickly get out of your grasp. It can get quite unwieldy. You can lose direction, things like that. So, trying to keep focus on it, trying to keep a bit of objectivity about it and maintain that control is definitely a real challenge.
Yeah.
How many drafts do you do of a novel, Sarah?
That's a really interesting question. I probably, at least 10, I would say, before I even send it off to the publisher, because I'm just rereading it over and over again. So I have printouts, that I've got, and the scribbles start off all over the page, and then they gradually get a little bit less, till I'm happy with it. But it would be hard to count actually, but certainly more than 10.
So how does your novel alter from your first draft through to the one that you're comfortable to send to the publisher?
It really alters in every way, to be honest. What I'll do is all the time I'm trying to draw out all sorts of things, so the characters, the plot, the pace, that kind of thing. And every time I look back at it, I'll hopefully see where that's gone awry or what I want to add or lose and that kind of thing. So the shape is a constantly changing thing for me until it starts to become more honed and something I'm more satisfied with.
So do your characters change very much from your first, say with Grace in your novel Beneath the Shadows? Did she change very much from when you first came up with the concept of Grace to how she ended up in the final draft?
I don't think she changed. The core of her didn't change. So I knew what I was doing straight away. I knew I had this woman with these different challenges before her. But I think that she developed, certainly, as I went along. So I would put more and more into her. As I think more and more about it, I hope that I can add more and more depth to her.
Mm. Can you tell us a little bit about Grace? What I really enjoyed about this book, Sarah, was that I was a bit nervous when I first picked it up because I'm not what you would normally call a mystery reader.
Yeah.
And I would say that my view of mystery is probably like, when I think of mystery, I think of Agatha Christie and
Miss Marple or something.
And I think of it as being a very stuffy sort of genre. So when I picked it up, I was a bit like, I hope I'm going to get into this. But what I liked about it was that it is very gothic, and I really enjoyed that aspect of, setting a mystery. But she is a modern personality. So can you tell us a little bit about her?
Yeah, well, Grace is really a very modern city girl who finds herself living for circumstances that have just overwhelmed her in this it's not really backwards, but it's quite a historical type of world, where and it's set with all these resonances of things like Rebecca and Wuthering Heights, and the landscape is still very pristine and hasn't developed. So she's confronted with a very different way of life, and yet she brings to it all of her very 21st century feelings and values, and I found that a really interesting concept to play upon, and try to do it in a few different ways as well, by drawing in and out of the landscape reflections of what's actually going on in Grace's mind. Yeah,
and I think you were very successful in that because, like I said, the Gothic, even though she was a modern person in that Gothic scene, it really did work. Why did you write this particular book, Sarah?
Well, it just evolves naturally, really. I mean, I often say that the stories that I try and work on are the ones that take me with them rather than the other way around. I don't really chase them as such. They just overwhelm me because they seem very real to me. So Grace's situation certainly seemed very real to me. I was really caught with a lot of interest about how she would deal with her fears of going into this isolated world, but also her determination to find out what's happened to her missing husband. So I worked on that, and then it just really developed from there, and I found that setting it in the North Yorkshire moors, I had more and more to draw on. They've got some fantastic legends and symbols of the moors there that I could use, and everything started to work with me as well in the development of the story, so it took on a life of its own after a while.
And certainly the moors certainly has a history and atmosphere about them, don't they?
Mm.
Yeah, they're just perfect for the kind of Gothic atmosphere that I wanted to create, and they've got all sorts of different legends that are insular legends that they've developed of their own accord about everything from stone waymarkers to witching posts that existed in different houses, and goblins that roam the moors, and black dogs and things like that. And then they've also got quite a few bits of literary tradition as well, because Bram Stoker wrote part of Dracula in Whitby, which is very close to where I set my book, and so they provided me with a lot of different avenues to explore.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was the hardest part, do you think, of writing this book?
I would probably say harder than anything that actually went into the book was writing to a deadline.
Yeah.
Because I never had that pressure before. I'd managed to, it would come back to me, my first book, I'd had all the time that I wanted really to write it, because you can do that with your first, but you have the luxury of exploring it as much as you want before you submit it. This time I had less than a year to get it done, and a very young child as well at the same time. So I think that deadline was very pressured, but also a real challenge that, looking back, you know, it's brilliant to know that I can write like that as well.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We'll probably go for a break in a minute, but I just wanted to ask, was there a particular message in the novel that you wanted to make sure, you know, if someone read it, they actually took that message on?
I think strength in the face of adversity is definitely something that I'm trying to look at. You know, it's a very dark novel, but I also hope that there are elements of lightness and elements of hope in it as well. You know, I think that I'm looking at a lot of things about how you deal with the past, and how that can either hold you back or it can move you on if you're successful in it. And and how the past really, how we're letting go of the past in all sorts of different ways. You know, this very ancient world, you know, that's disappearing. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? So I'm asking, more than wanting to give anything to the reader in terms of answers, I'm really asking questions and asking the reader to see what they think about all those kinds of issues as well.
Okay.
Well, Sarah, we'll just take a break and then we'll come back and talk about what's in the future for you. And we're speaking to Sarah Foster.
Yes, and Sarah's been talking to us about her newest book called Beneath the Shadows, which is, I would describe as a gothic mystery novel. Welcome back again, Sarah.
Hello there.
Sarah, tell us, who's your favourite author?
Well, that's a very difficult question, because there are a lot of people that I really admire. I think
you can give us a selection if you like.
I will do. A definite standout for me is Maggie O'Farrell. Certainly her first book, After You're Gone, I think was one of my inspirations of the kind of book that I would like to write. And her last book as well, The Hand That First Held Mine, I thought was absolutely fantastic, the way that she can play with narrative so seamlessly and actually explore characters and create a really good story at the same time. So she's a real standout for me.
Do you read across a bit of genre, or do you just, like, do you have your favourite genre, or do you read a number of genres?
Not really, just books that appeal to me, or just something about the story grabs me. So, for example, at the moment, I really want to get into Distant Hours by Kate Morton, because I thought that her books have been brilliant so far as well.
Yeah.
And then I'm also reading Delirium, the new Lauren Olivier book. That's Lauren Oliver, I think her name is actually, and that is really grabbing me. Her Delirium seems, it's about a world where love has actually been found to be a virus, and so people are cured when they're 18, and this girl in the story is about to turn 18, and before she can get cured, I think something's going to happen. I've not got that far yet.
Oh, okay. Sounds very interesting.
Sounds fascinating, yeah.
Yeah. Sounds a lot like there's a lot of that sort of book coming out in what we're calling the YA genre now, which is young adult, but everyone seems to be reading.
Yeah, I think it is. But it's also reminded me of The Handmaid's Tale, Margaret Atwood, that I read, as a teenager. It seems quite similar, those kind of themes. So,
what can we expect from you in the future, Sarah?
Well, I've got plans for 2 more books, and I'm starting to hopefully work on the next one around April. So, similar vein, mystery suspense, but I'm hoping that I'll set the next one around WA, certainly for the core of it. And I'll also draw in some of my favourite themes, so I'm going to have a bit of a love story there, but certainly some real big dilemmas, a few tragedies and family secrets and things like that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So have you started that yet, or you're about to start?
I've started plotting it and writing scribbled notes for it, but I haven't really done a lot of work on it because I've just been too caught up in the last books really yet to make a start on it. So I'm really excited about doing it.
Yeah, and so when would that be expected on the shelf?
No pressure.
I don't know because I've yet to sort out another contract with my publishers. So yeah, I have to discuss all that with them first. But hopefully not too far away.
Okay.
I'd like to keep trying to work to reasonable deadlines as well. So yeah, you never know, and maybe in the next couple of years.
So, being Western Australian, have you met or spoken to Tim Winton?
No, but I'd love to. I mean, yeah, I've read a few. The one big book that I haven't read of his is, of course, the most famous book, Cloud Street. But I'm a big fan of Breath and desperate to get to Cloud Street as well. So it's definitely next on my reading list.
It's finding the time, isn't it?
Oh, it's a nightmare, yeah, especially with the little one, because you don't get that luxury. But as well, I feel like he and I share a few things in common with our interest in conservation as well. So I'd love to have a chat with him.